A lot of people will be like, I don't know.
It's interesting when you launch a logo that's going to be there in about 8 years.
Which made me stop my scroll for sure.
It's not offensive, but it's an odd one.
I love that. You're designing for the garbage.
It doesn't quite feel like community in terms of people.
I, this time, have the surprise.
Yes.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Brand Design Critique Podcast, the shortest, most snappiest named podcast you've ever listened to. I'm Caleb Dean from Overmatter, and today again with Miles Seiden. Miles, you have a super sick hat on today.
Thank you so much. I just got back from Japan a couple of weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, and I thought this was really exciting. I've never had a sports type hat like this, for a local team, and it just so happened that Ohtani was blasted all over the place. They won, or the Dodgers won, while I was over there, so it's very exciting, and I was like, okay, this is fun. A little bit of kanji on a hat. So.
Yeah, I don't watch baseball, and they had me watching it. Just, when you want good people to do well at their thing, I was watching. Today we're going to talk about the Utah 2030 brand. Speaking of good things, or maybe not so good things, who knows? Listen to find out, I suppose. It feels like it's been the buzz of the internet for a while. I think there's so much fodder that we can talk about. I don't have any further ado. Let's just pull it up, and either one of us can jump in. I know I'm chomping at the bit. You're probably also chomping at the bit.
Absolutely. Well, the good thing is this, the news cycle is so short and the buzz around things are so short. So it's interesting when you launch a logo that's going to be there in about 8 years and then call it transitional, which to me is an interesting thing to call it as well.
Oh, yeah.
Is it non-committal? Is it, oops, if the public doesn't like it, maybe we can call it back.
Maybe that's their asterisk. Maybe they'd built themselves a back door and saying, this is our transitional one just to test the waters. Maybe they'll have 5 or 6 other transitional ones just to design by an even bigger committee than I imagined the Olympic Games having.
Absolutely. To get something out that has, that doesn't play to everyone and is the kitchen sink and actually is serviceable is a coup if you're doing a design by committee thing, especially over 8 years. And, I'm sure a lot of changes in between then.
Yeah. Maybe let's go initial thoughts. Your gut reaction when you first saw whatever launch images.
I wasn't sure. It wasn't a love. It wasn't a hate. And I don't really like being in the middle because, as Tibor Kalman said, it's not really, well, I'm paraphrasing, but it's not doing anything for anybody if they either don't love it or hate it. So that's where it is for me. There is that sense that it's been looked over by a lot of people and there may have been some hemming and hawing. It certainly hasn't had the best public reception, but from a personal place, I mean, I'm interested in type, of course. So I'm interested in those systems and how they would have gone about basically creating a font. So from that perspective, it's interesting. The read is kind of odd to me. I don't mind though that it's not super legible, but it's different from most of the Olympics logos that I've seen, which is more about an abstract symbol and then legible type. And in this case, they're taking the abstraction to the topography. So yeah, a quick glance, it's not offensive, but it's an odd one. It's kind of alien looking in a sense.
I think the first launch image I saw was the white letters on this gray-black backdrop, which made me stop my scroll for sure. It was like, what is that? I think it showed up on LinkedIn, and this kind of stuff never shows up on LinkedIn. And for me, I think I was also lukewarm about it. I was like, oh, what is that? And it was like Utah 2034, and then realizing it was attached to the games made me go in this form of we'll see kind of deal. I think similarly, when I think of Olympic Games, that there's this really beautiful icon that goes with it that's sort of shorthand, and then a cleaner, more legible type that goes along with it. And I do agree with the sort of alien feel of this. I think the part for me that I'm still withheld about is like what it looks like as an identity system.
Me
So
too. Same here.
typographically, I think it's really interesting, but I'm just like waiting on the edge of my seat to see what the system comes out to be.
Yeah, because as designers, we always have to talk about how a logo is not the whole brand. It's an entry point to the identity, and it's really how it plays with all these elements because most identities can't just rest on the laurels of their logo. There are very few
Oh yeah.
instances where, especially a typographic logo, would be able to just sit by itself unless it's allowing other aspects of the brand to really carry the whole story, like a fashion brand or something.
I mean, it is like you said, it feels pretty alien to me. I think this goes really similar to like the Cracker Barrel launch to me, where it's like this is the logo, and it was like logo first. Here's the
Yeah.
logo. Even if this one's temporary, I think launches go so much better with the whole system. And I can't even imagine like the hype building that goes around the Olympic Games. But I also don't think that, in my mind, you say the Olympics and you have the hype, right? Like, I don't know if Utah needs a 9-year runway for their for their game hype building. Maybe they do. Maybe that's the way the committee works. I'm not sure. I think the launch undermines it quite a bit here. So I do have some launch materials here. Their official tweet reads introducing Utah 2034 with a little American flag behind it. It says designed to embrace and unite all communities across the state. We're coming together as one Utah as we celebrate 3,000 days from the 2034 Olympic and Paralympic Games. What a runway! 3,000
What
days.
a runway. That is huge. I mean, it's unheard of in other arenas. I can only think of the Olympics for that excitement that builds. But yeah, there's so much shifting that could go on in between that period. But what's also funny to me is something that they didn't even say in this launch announcement is the difference that they've chosen in even the name to actually go with the entire state other
Mm-hmm.
than the older Olympics was Salt Lake City, right? So that's a
Sure.
marked difference in how they're presenting themselves, which works really nice for the identity because you get the four and the four
Yeah.
characters of the letters and the alphanumeric characters. But it's odd in that it breaks convention, and they didn't even say anything about it. I guess
Yeah. I
didn't
thought
want to
I thought
correct.
the same thing, and then I was like, Salt and Lake and City are also four
Oh, that's
characters, right? Like
true.
they could have said,
Yes,
like they
Max.
could have said Salt Lake 2034, and then had this like perfect square to deal with. Instead, they picked Utah. In my brain, it's like it's got to be an SEO play, right? Like, oh, now you'll search Utah 2034 instead of Salt Lake Olympic Games, and then get confused on something that happened 30 years ago versus now. I don't I don't know what the play
That's
is.
interesting. That's funny. I didn't even think about that. That it's really four, four, and four, and then the four of the numbers. So that could have worked for an identity, but
Yeah.
maybe they were just trying to be more inclusive of the whole state, since it's pretty common that one city doesn't really hold all of the venues for all of the
Oh yeah.
activities.
It would be nuts.
So it does make sense, when you're going to have a whole state, maybe you raise the pride, maybe it's a merchandising thing, and people feel more ownership over it.
Here's another image of their launch. It's like they had a gallery. I look at this launch image and it's got what seven rows of 10 or 11 people and maybe 20 rows. So there's 150 people there, 200 people there. Well, they got like 200 people in this audience. I'm like, that's probably the committee, right? That's probably Salt Lake City officials, Utah government, Paralympic committees, Olympic committees, international. Like their launch party seems funny to me, and the way it's photographed. It's probably like just media and the committee. But I think that nuance of like having to understand as a brand designer back in the day, there's a singular artist and creative, and you follow this singular vision, right? And then as it
Hmm.
gets digressed into a more corporate and larger entity, it has gotten to the phase where it goes through so many rounds of approvals and eyeballs and markups. And I don't know if this one, like, this is still pretty wild to go through a committee. I think of the committees I've been on, and a lot of people will be like, I don't know. Does it say Utah?
Right, right. Because that's certainly one of these questions. Is it legible, but also is it memorable? And maybe that's the dichotomy. I don't know if that's the exact, two ends of a spectrum that you could look at, but it is memorable because it's way different. I mean, the only other type of typographic adventure that we could think of, let's say, would be London 2012, where they used the 2012, or I think it was Wolf Olins who did this,
Yeah.
in,
Yep.
in such a way it became this total abstract piece, and it had its controversy too.
Yeah. I remember it coming out.
You could still read London, so that's maybe a marked difference between the two.
I remember when this one came out too, and it was like, oh, what'd you do? Like chop up a piece of paper and just like pick the pieces that stuck. And honestly, they probably did. Like, there's probably like some truth behind that creative
I
process.
mean, it's amazing that it got out. Sometimes I wonder how something like this different gets out because of that hemming and hawing that often happens with large
Mhm.
committees. So someone must have been real gung ho.
Yeah, that, or like you said, I wonder if there's like there has to be something along the lines of like how much headspace it occupies initially, right? I'm imagining rolling through one of these projects, and you would have your logo up, and you would also have the last 30 Olympics up, and you'd have this like huge wall of the most, just an insanely broad range of visual marks made, and then like trying to insert yours in there, saying like this is the next edition of this world renowned thing would be such a challenge. And I think that that's probably the way that some of these more abstract things are pushed through.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it does seem that the symbol is abstract because you're trying to cater to this idea that's globally loved. So I think there's a lot of pressure to that, but what we could see that we can't see here. And that's why I think you and I are both feeling that let's wait and see,
Yeah,
because without a system, it's very hard to judge how this is going to operate. I mean, you could see maybe some of these rounded forms influencing pictograms like they did in the Tokyo Olympics, which I think was one
yeah.
of the most beautiful things that's ever been done for the event, really. But especially
Mhm.
those pictograms that just came to life. So I could, I see body parts in here maybe.
100%.
So
100%.
if they can use it in that way, then it could be really interesting, and then this starts to make a lot more sense. But right now, it's very abstract.
Maybe we'll watch this launch video. We'll just let it run, because I do think there's like pulling in some really nice aspects of Utah, being from a similar part of the world, pulling in the streams and the canyons that like that shape the topography of the place. The ski slopes visual is really nice, and it's going to be something that I hope that really influences what the full brand identity looks like.
Me too. It's interesting to see that juxtaposition when you have the landscape in the background, because it does also start to give that more credibility. Otherwise, it does feel abstract. Like I feel like I'm looking at Klingon or a light language or something like that. It has that vibe of almost futuristic. So that for me, I'm not sure if that goes together with the feeling of nature until
Yeah,
you
for
start
sure.
to use it together somehow.
It's an interesting thing too. I'm like thinking about like map design and thinking of like a Massimo Vignelli New York subway system, and it doesn't follow the topography at all. And this seems like there's a lot of potential to go really right here, and a lot of potential to go really wrong here. Whether this like organic curve that's also modular seems like there might be a little bit of tension in that typographically. And also, how are they going to render stuff, and how is the signage, wayfinding? Part of what I think of the Olympic Games is like just a massive output of creative collateral. Everything
Yeah.
from tickets and badges and memorabilia, the shirts that athletes are wearing, wayfinding systems like hotel signage when you're going to be there, programs, just this
Oh yeah.
insane volume of stuff that then like immediately goes away after it's done.
It does. It's this huge pop up community that just inflates itself, comes back. But I mean, the things for me that you said that were massively important in terms of consideration when building out the system is about wayfinding. I mean, people have to make their way around the city and various other places in Utah where the venues are going to be. So that obviously cannot be illegible. And so I don't have a problem with the logo as the main mark being something that isn't legible, as long as it's
Yeah,
paired
yeah.
with something broader that gets you there. Like what font choices will they make so that part is made more simple? Or how could you use, these abstract kind of alphanumeric characters to do something within that?
I mean, it comes back to your point of like legibility versus readability. It is legible as Utah 2034. It's not
Yeah.
readable as Utah 24. Like if you're, and that's a distinguishment in the
Yes.
wayfinding. I always have to convince clients of like the certain amount of hang time, like how long it takes somebody to read something. And there's a sort of a bell curve, right? If it's too easy to read off the cuff, then people forget it. If it's like just Helvetica with nothing else, you just forget it because you read it so quick and then you're on to the next thing. But if it's so hard to read that you can't get there, or it takes 35 seconds to read it, I think that's also a fail. And this one feels somewhere in the middle for me. I mean, it's in the middle enough that it's burrowed its way into social media's brains for sure. I pulled up this image here, the ski slopes, too. Just I thought these were really seeing the actual routes. I don't know if this is like going to be a luge route or a ski route, whatever. It seemed like a really nice ode to the letter form. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, I think it really is how they're going to play with those forms. Like you could totally use that as a basis and, begin to draw these characters that do feel like this. And, seeing these images, it does connect in that way. I would say when I first looked at it, it looked more like maybe body parts, or like the apertures you maybe think
Yeah, yeah,
about the arc, that kind of a thing, or the arch.
yeah,
Yeah, it's just not also because it's funny. It's got this organicness, but they're also quite not square, but these
yeah.
tight rectangles. Like it fits within a grid, right? So I just when you talk about unity and you have this, okay, there's a feeling of unification, but at the same time, it's very alien. So it doesn't quite feel like community in terms of people. So what I would
Sure.
hope to see is something that makes it more human. So maybe it's in the choice
Mhm.
of color, but like when you see this huge monolithic, sign with just a logo on it, it's hard for us to have a sense of the fullness of how they want to express this event.
I'm connected with a lot of business owners in Utah, and there was a lot of backlash from Utah proper who were like, "My state is so beautiful, and this doesn't fit the
Mm.
ethos of where we live either. Plus, it's in Salt Lake, not just Utah proper." And which, like you said, I think venue wise isn't necessarily true. But I also think, particularly if you're in the states and you're from the states, it's no big deal that national parks are a 6 hour car ride away from one another.
Yeah.
I think the scale is like, to me, it's like, oh, okay, like we're gonna go on a road trip. You can go to Arches and Zion and any number of those, but you're gonna drive for 3 days, you know.
Sure.
And I think that being from the place, like that's not true if you're from Europe. Like if you were in Spain and you drive 3 hours, you're across Europe.
Hmm. Yeah, you can go a lot farther and be in a completely different culture, right?
Completely different place. And so I think that Salt Lake is fine, but Utah, I don't think that you can pull in, landscapes, particular like beautiful landscapes when people talk about why they love Utah. I don't think you can pull in that iconography because it's not representative of the entire state, which is I think a difficulty for people who are like, I live in Utah because the red dirt is so beautiful.
Right, right. What's also interesting is that, speaking of landscapes, it's got almost like a top-down view, but they're
Hmm.
strained into these little mapped gridded areas. So that's what's
Yes.
kind of funny. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not sure actually, because I'm seeing this pretty fresh actually. So I
Sure.
don't have
Perfect.
a feeling necessarily about that. Like it doesn't really go either way for me, but I have more questions, and then that's
Yeah.
what I do a lot. Like as a designer, is ask these questions. Like, what if it was more open? What if it felt more like borderless and it didn't have these constraints, where it was more like a landscape in and of itself as an
Yeah.
overall footprint instead of these, blocked forms? That's a different thing I would have pursued.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you, and then I'm also like in putback mode of like Utah was drawn with a ruler, right? I'm like looking at the monolith, and you're like,
That's
it
true.
has straight
It
edges.
is.
Like most of the Western states were like, we're just gonna draw it with the ruler. Like, who cares if there's a river that runs through there or a
It's true.
mountain range? It's like this is right down the middle. And I think Utah's drawn that way. And so it probably, in that way, I like the ode to it. But I also, then I'm like answering my own question. It should be an abbreviation like SLT, then Lake, then 2034. So it would have the gap in it, like the state. That feels like something I would have tried. Maybe they tried it.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. It's tough when you go online and you're not privy to the process. And I kind of wish that that would happen a little more to see all of the options. And I know they get proprietary, shelved away, and all that stuff. Because as an old boss of mine said, you're basically designing for the garbage with most of your
I love that.
iteration.
You're designing for
Only
the
one
garbage.
goes, right? Or rubbish bin or something like that. But yeah, it is funny. I mean, that's a really good point. Like it's drawn, it's like a pixelated Gumby, or like Richard Ioway
Yeah.
from the IT crowd. The way his hair was
Yeah.
sculpted. It has that kind of like piece that's out of it.
I liked your comment about like humanizing it a little bit. It will be interesting how they bring people into it a little bit because I agree with you in that it feels alien, like almost matrixy. I feel like there was an era in the early 2000s of let's make alien modular typefaces, and it feels of that ilk, but it's also gridded, which seems interesting. I think the iconography or the pictograms will help it a lot. And then what, like you said, whatever typeface. I just wanted to show the apparel because I look at the apparel and I'm like, I'd wear that shirt.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's funny. There's so many different considerations that are part
Yeah,
of it, and also it's not necessarily it's not bad or good that it looks a little alien. I
yeah,
suppose it's something about what you want to communicate, but there's all sorts of things happening now that have changed tradition. Like you see perfume bottles that look like alcohol bottles, or vice versa.
yeah,
Like things that were one style are now traversing different categories. And so, maybe here they're trying to push something with it.
yeah, 100%. I always think of what is the one that people have been losing their minds over for the last 2 years? Graza oil, the squeeze bottle
Oh,
for olive oil.
oh no, I haven't seen that.
People have lost their minds on it. And now it's been like the most copied thing for olive oil ever. Like
Really?
very similar. I also, one of the other consideration I always think of in the Olympic Games is like that it has to be paired with two other logos all the time.
Yeah.
I think of the Olympic rings, and when you talk logos, like the Olympic rings is hard to beat. Like it's classic, it's iconic, it's meaningful, it's so simple that my 2-year-old could draw it. It sets such a high standard for these marks to be paired with. So I pull up these lockups just because I think it's so like it seems like an impossible task to pair a mark.
It's funky. It's funky. I mean, it's hard to hold up between the two. And I mean, people don't talk as much because they don't watch as much probably the Paralympics, but I think that's a really
Yeah,
like beautiful rendition that goes off of the Olympics. I mean, it's harder to capture like,
yeah,
like a child could, but it's like you zoomed into these rings and it's about to make this completion. So
yeah.
conceptually, I think it's great, but it doesn't pair with the Olympic logo in the same way because it's not like one thickness. So it's like you have three different things happening, and it's going to be very hard to reconcile three looks like that.
So I don't know. I don't know if the design challenge would be like I'm sure in my if I were to explore an identity like this, it'd be like, can you design a third option that marries the two together in
Yeah,
some way, which would also be an impossible task because it's
might
just
be.
an
It
insane
could be fun
thing.
though.
Could be
But
really
it's
fun.
weird. What about the Salt Lake City that's written there? Like, why is that in there in the materials? Like, is that something that they're going to use? Because this is out of context, and it's hard to say. Like,
Yeah,
is this in each location? They're going to have this like all caps, situation going on.
I don't know. Like I pulled it from their web, like the Olympics, the official Olympics websites. Now I pulled it a couple days after some of the backlash, so I don't know if like they did update the horizontal one to have Salt Lake City at the bottom of that sentence, and they didn't update the stacked one, or what's happening. But it's still growing, right? It's like it has 8 years to come to fruition.
I mean, this is why this field is difficult because
Yeah.
You just don't know how people are going to perceive something. Like someone put love into this. This took a lot of time to
Yeah.
shape. I'm sure there's tons of sketches, and this is part of the thing that no one sees either, unless you're really in it. And just for people listening that are not or watching that are not in this kind of arena, that's the thing. It takes so long sometimes, and you've made all these little micro decisions like it's too round here, it's not round enough there, it comes to a point, it tapers. Like there's tons of decisions that come here, and then you see it and you get backlash. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
You just don't know. You can be as objective as possible. Like, okay, these mean the curves of a body and landscapes and all this stuff, and then you don't get the expected result from the audience.
I mean, you go into these things expecting backlash, especially when you're the scale of an Olympic Games. You're an event for the entire planet. So there's gonna be backlash. And in my brain, I always think about the average market distribution of 2.5% are early adopters or innovators. I guess 13.5% is the front half of the bell curve. And if you get 13.5% to like it, then the majority follow. But if 13.5% absolutely hate it, then the bell curve will also follow. So I always look at these things like, okay, is it less than 13% of the people I know who hate it? Then we succeeded. Like that feels like it would be a success.
I mean, the major defining thing would also seem to be, can they push the merchandise? Because, what are you really trying to do in these candidate cities? Pushing for tons, an influx of, I don't know, thousands or more, people coming into the city. And a lot of time it takes a hit. The city can take a hit. It doesn't necessarily profit from this, but there has to be some expectation that, and it's a lot of pressure to put on a logo without a system, is that it's going to move merchandise, that a lot of people are going
100%.
to want the shirt of some sort of keepsake from their experience, or just
Yeah.
what have you.
I mean, the whole thing, I don't know. I think it was an athletic director that once said to me, it's all about butts in the seats. It's like, that's it. The whole thing is just to get butts in the seats. And as long as the venues are sold out and people are watching it or streaming it from their multiple streamers, then everybody's happy.
And can a logo really do that? I mean, I don't think so.
I don't think a logo can break it either for the Olympics.
Yeah.
I think you could put just about anything on the Olympics, and the brand equity behind the Olympics itself, I think would just about carry it through.
Yeah, it already has that cachet. So it's like, if it, I don't know how many people would honestly decide not to go to the Olympics on the count of a logo. I mean,
Yeah,
it seems a little bit small as to the overall thing. Like it really is about unity in of itself, and that's maybe also one of the issues in describing something as about unity, because it's already there. And to your point, it's already in the Olympics logo, the idea of community and worldwide connection. So I don't know that the individual state or city representing the Olympics that year needs to do that. It's already there. So another concept also could be pushed that complements the idea of unity, but maybe is more specific to Utah.
yeah, maybe that's what the sort of local population is yearning for, is a more individual or geographic identifying factor, maybe because they subconsciously feel that the Olympics is already doing that and carrying that community vision like you're talking about.
I mean, I think on April 1st they should just say, "Surprise! This is actually for Area 51. That's where we're having."
It's now open source.
Is anyone right? Open source logo. Oh man, and it's like I have obviously some sympathy or empathy for those in this process, because who knows, but that pressure of having a worldwide view on something that you've created, and it's always going to have the whole spectrum of opinion. There's no way around that, and you just hope for the best. But it's also hard when you might have done something differently but had to go in a different direction based on certain choices. Then it gets launched and you're like, oh.
Yeah, I'm sure this process, like you said, there's have to be hundreds of versions designed. And I'm sure that every designer probably had a top 10 list that probably was also like pretty uniform across designers, and then anybody in the committee could have picked, version number 11 instead, and then you're
Absolutely.
like, okay,
Oh,
well, we can iterate another 20 times on 11. You have another top 10, somebody picks version 11 again.
or there's the Frankenstein syndrome, where it just gets
Yep.
cobbled together from the different directions. I mean, I guess that's the danger sometimes of presenting so many options. People
Yep.
want options, but in the end, the more you have, the more difficult it is to make a decision, especially given the size of a community or a committee. Like, I don't know how large that committee is really, but if it's
Yep.
more than like 3 to 8, it's very hard to get people to rally around one single identity.
Before you give you your final thoughts, I'm going to ask your final thoughts to keep this a little shorter. I this time have the surprise.
Yes.
I have it. It's me this time.
Ooh,
It's still in its box. I haven't mounted it properly yet.
yeah, you
I have
pre-thought
some
this.
grand ambitions to properly
Okay.
mount it. Hopefully,
Well,
this
I'm
mic
excited.
isn't the loudest thing on earth.
Oh, this is for the ASMR people. The bubble wrap. Yeah, all the Foley is great.
His eyeball fell off.
Oh no, that's awesome. I love it. Is that a
So
wiener dog?
this is from the 1972 Olympic Games back in Munich.
Wow,
This one is Ollie,
that's
Ollie the
cute.
Sound, the
That's cute.
mascot. They had a mascot, this Ollie, who was
I did
made
not
out
know
of
that.
wood, and he has a little wooden rod that runs through him, and you can insert different pieces and change his little structure so he gets longer or shorter.
That
But
is
this is
cute.
the 1972 Olympic Games is 100% my favorite one of all time.
Really? Wow, I'm gonna have to do more looking into that.
I think it's unbeatable politically, socially, iconography wise. I think Tokyo introduced the iconography in 60, were they 64? And then Mexico
Man.
had it 68.
Oh, that could have been 68. I think Mexico was 68. Yeah, which is
Mexico was
beautiful. That
68.
is
And I think
Lance Wyman did that one, and it had the Olympic rings around the 6 and the 8, like with the
amazing,
asterisk. It was awesome.
unbeatable.
Yeah.
But when we talk about systems, like I don't think an Olympic design system was done better than the 1972 games.
Was that what's his name? O'Teal? Isn't that who did O'Teal? Who did the pictograms? Like the classic grid? Is that the one?
Otto Liker.
There we go.
Yeah.
Just had a complete Friday brain
I
fart.
was like,
Yeah.
I was going to the German soccer player. I was like, no, he played,
Then I do.
he was a
Okay.
center mid. He was an attacking mid.
That's really
He was a number
funny. But
two.
I didn't know about the
Yeah,
mascot. But
Otto
the
Liker,
mascot is so
and
fun.
I had to bring a surprise this time. Final thoughts. We'll go final thoughts from you on the Utah logo.
So it's one of these. Let's wait and see. I hope that it doesn't change necessarily because it's a shame to just backtrack. I would almost say if there was advice being given to stick with it and really like pull from what they've got here to make this make more sense. And then people have this aha rather than this like logo in a vacuum, which is just it's always a difficult proposition. You need to see how something is going to work. I do like that you can stack it and rearrange it, so that's something that's fun that they could do. But it really is about how they build a system around this, the colors that they pick. I mean, that way you could make it a little less alien. Let's say you could make it more about the colors of the landscapes if you were going to do that. So I'm hoping it's some stuff that softens this a little bit. I mean, I know it's rounded, but just the very squared nature of the characters. I'm hoping that there's something that feels more organic, but is able to tie this together and just use this as a fulcrum, of the whole system rather than just the only thing that's a part of it.
I'm in the same boat as the wait and see. I'm really interested in it. I think typographically there's a lot of potential here. I don't always love modular type. The M and the I are going to get really funky and wonky. I think monospaced fonts always have their place.
Me
But
too.
I'm super interested in when it comes to a system. Like you said, right now it's still logo and it's still just like slapping the logo on things. And I always get to these points, and I want these big organizations to understand that like the games are more than the logo. The idea of building community and bringing people together and meeting on common ground for a competition and a fair set of rules. The things that the games strive for in that are the pieces of media that ought to be put out, more so than like, here is our logo, here is a shirt with our logo. It always to me needs to be like, this is what we believe. To lean too heavily on Nike is like their idea of just do it, and all the shirts are about working hard, being competitive, whatever else, and they just happen to have a Nike logo on it, not vice versa. And I think
Yeah.
that the output, the system design here, and hopefully they talk about why these crazy shapes are important to our lives more than just making us feel like we're going to be zapped up to a spaceship.
I guess you just want it to feel natural to what the thing is. So even if it's going to take a complete left turn, that we can understand fairly easily what the intent was. And
Mm-hmm.
that would be made better by anything that they do with the system that ties that to the ideals. Because otherwise, it just sounds like market speak, where you're just saying something like unity, but does it really have that feeling of that? I mean, I do see like there's a cohesion as they cross each other, especially between like the two and the zero. Those things are happening in there. So it's just pushing and pulling on those particular things that would make it feel more about unity, if that's what you're going to say it's about.
Well, we're going to end this one before we could wax poetic for another hour, I'm sure, or two or three. It's too easy for us to to talk at length about these things. For anybody listening, one, let us know in the comments whether you love or hate our long takes. But also consider subscribing. Be sure to check out Miles's work. And I don't know if there's like an Olympic committee to follow, but maybe in July of 2034, we'll have to come back to this. We'll like bookmark this episode and come back and see if they ever come out with a system and humanize it and the pictograms and all that sort of stuff. So like, subscribe, save this video, and put it on a reminder to watch it in 2033.
That's it. I'm just looking forward to the games, and honestly, it's like I love to root for various teams. I love the stories. It doesn't really matter where anyone comes from. It's despite some of the politics, it really is one of the most beautiful things that we do as humans is to come together in camaraderie. I mean, because that's what happens with the athletes. So, love it or hate it, I hope people rally around just the event itself, and, and that whatever else comes of this does bring more unity around the visuals.
All right, we'll check you all in the next one. Peace out.